Today we continue the conversation of our piano buyer's guide. The topic, new versus used. How do you decide which is right for you, and ultimately, what is the better value?
Hi, this is Ted with Alamo Music Center in beautiful downtown San Antonio, Texas.
And I'm Patrick Moore. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channels, check out our other videos, sign up for notifications, like our videos, leave us comments. We appreciate your support and we love to interact with you. Ted, you've heard this probably a million times, but which one do I buy, the new one or the used one?
It all depends.
It all depends, and a lot of the times when we're talking new versus used, it's to borrow the old cliche, it's not apples to apples, but a lot of the times in the piano world, you know, you're looking new or used, it's not the same model, it's not the same manufacturer, it's not the same price, it's not the same, it's right. It's a whole bunch of confusion.
Well, it all depends on your shopper too. So if you have a flexible shopper is someone that wants to be shown and sold everything, but they don't tell you what their budget is. Mm-hmm. Okay, so with a budget, you know, now new and used, X amount of money. New or used, X amount of money. Mm-hmm. As a flexible shopper comes, we're just looking around, we want to see what you got. Well, it's hard to draw that distinction.
And so that's why we're here. That's why hopefully you're watching, is it can be very confusing for a first-time buyer to go into a piano store and be pitched. You know?
that's why you were on the phone and talking to all the salesmen today. I figure out what he's doing. He's actually asking people if new or used. What's the good thing, and get a different perspective. And I thought, that's great, because almost everyone's going to say, hey, if you're getting a car, whatever, just go out and buy yourself something new. It'll be yours. You can personalize it. It'll be yours forever, and no one can take that away from you.
So we were pitched all day. So in preparation for the video, we did ask salespeople. We said, hey, pitch us away. Why should I buy new? Why should I buy used?
And then you get a great argument from the same guy, mm-hmm. one way or the other, because it is hard to balance.
It is.
Because sometimes we just want a beginner piano. Well, no one manufactures a beginner piano. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just make a piano that does its job.
Yeah.
And so a beginner piano, a lot of times people want to start off, we don't want to spend a whole lot. Okay, so that's kind of thinking maybe we can find a used instrument or take it off their hands. There are pluses and minuses. So I guess I'm going to ask you to sell me a used piano or a new one, or are we going to do
it? And so as a precursor to this, I think budget is something that should be discussed before going into this. There's important things to take away of how much am I willing to commit to this? What's the overall purpose of me getting an instrument? And so if you approach the entire process as my desirable outcome is I learn music, or my desirable outcome is my kid gets a scholarship or plays or gets a better education, a more well-rounded education, or I've always wanted to do it, it's something I promised myself, I want to be able to play X, Y, or Z by the end of 10 years. I think having that intention going into this makes this whole thing a lot more palatable, because like you said earlier to me, you said I've never seen someone drown with a piano
like an anchor around
their neck, and they regret the decision that they bought an instrument, and they're upside down now on it, and so establishing your budget and your intention, I think, is very important. There are ways around expanding your budget with financing, with payment options, with there's the stores out there. There's a lot of great piano stores, music stores available, a lot of online stores as well. But they try to overcome any obstacle that's going to be in your way from getting you the instrument that you like. And so a lot of the great piano people in this world, I call them piano people. A lot of the great piano salespeople in this world will at the beginning, it's not worth talking about how much something is unless you like it or it's the right one for you. And that can sound like a sales pitch, but at the end of the day, it directs the conversation about how much you're willing to spend to what are you actually looking for, and what fills your needs when it comes to a piano. And so all that to say, new versus used, I think there are great value propositions between both of them. So we'll talk about new because I feel like new kind of checks a lot more of the safety boxes, and so
Absolutely.
and so in this realm of pianos, there's a lot of fear out there because it's an expensive thing. It's not something that, oh, I'm going to spend $10,000 on a piano today. Like that sounds fun.
Why do they cost so much?
And so the benefits of a new piano are warranty. I think there is something to be said about having a 10-year warranty on your instrument, and saying, okay, I don't have to worry about this instrument for at least 10 years. And then you just look at the used market of pianos, and there's pianos that are selling for a good amount of money that are 30, 40 years old. So you know that this thing has a long life cycle. And so you start thinking about the life cycle of the instrument. And when there's a new piano, you think about how much growth there is as a player with that instrument. And it's encouraging to see how many pianos outlast even their first owners.
Right.
And it can be a journey. And I think that was one of the cooler things we heard from someone talking about new instruments is there's a connection with your instrument.
There is, and there is a lot of people that actually believe, and this is a fascinating thing when you're selling pianos and you'll have these musicians that you know of and you really admire, and they come in and I'm looking for a piano. And it might just be a weekend gig, a recording session, or it could be to own. And if it's to own, you're going to see them more than once. They won't buy the first time they come in, a piano person. And they're always drawn to this, what is a new piano? You show them a new piano, and then you show them a used piano, and they start comparing prices and what they get. So a lot of times when people come in, they think they know what they want, but they're not really sure, because when you start looking at that fixed number budget, new versus used, and there is a commonality that one of the other salesmen mentioned, is that the downside with used pianos, when you get one or pre-owned, is that they're not just 2 or 3 years old, because people don't go through pianos as fast as they do cars. So if you're car shopping, well, then it's new or used. There's a good argument. You have your budget and you think, I can get this car brand new and have no trouble, but look, here's the car of my dreams, and it's a couple-year-old model, and it's the same price. That doesn't really always happen in the piano business, but there are a lot of cases where you can get a lot more by not buying a new instrument, but you're taking there's some other downside to it. The nice thing about a new instrument, particularly with a young student, and if there's more than one student in the house, and this is it's just a whole statement saying, the kids are going to take piano, they're going to do it for at least 10 or 15 years, so I want to get an instrument that's going to last 10 or 15 years, no complaints, no problems, except them dedicating themselves to practice. That's a new instrument buy right there. And that says everything straight down to the kids. Look, we believe in you, we believe you're going to do great, as opposed to getting a clunk or an older used piano that, well, when you get good, we'll get you something else. Well, I got news for you. You probably won't really get good on that.
Yeah, and it's not only, and so the instrument is a commitment to the kids, and the kids have a usable instrument for their journey.
Statement for what you believe about they're going to accomplish as well. Okay, so if you're saying, well, I just wanted to get a $200 or $300 piano, it's okay if all the keys don't work. The kid just needs to play something. Well, you're not really helping them, you're entertaining them. And that's great, but he's not getting educated. Entertainment isn't always education.
Yeah, and if you think about the longevity of the instrument, so you divide the cost of what you're spending today over 20 years, because that's at least 20 years before you're going to have to put another dime into it besides tuning. So, a new piano has such a great out-of-the-box, ready to stay there in its home, ready to be played for 20 plus years with little to no maintenance. Just an insane value proposition when you start thinking about, okay, well, it's this much money, spread that out over the lifespan of what, and really it's closer to 30 or 40 years when you invest into a decent instrument. The lifespan is just incredible on it. But it's also just on a new piano, you get to experience that journey with it. So it becomes part of how you play. It becomes a part of the familiarity of learning your scales and knowing exactly where the sweet spots of the instrument are, and it becomes a relationship. And so,
well, the one thought I didn't finish is that when these people come in to play, They actually believe the instrument has a soul and it's in the wood and it comes out through the soundboard from the rims after they entice it through the keys. Most piano players I've ever known, that's what they think they do when they're playing. They're bringing an inanimate object to life.
And when that life cycle ends on that instrument, it's heartbreaking. You know, it's like, okay, it's not keeping up with me anymore.
Right.
It's not, and so there is a lot of value to having something that's fresh from the beginning that you are growing with, and the retention of value at least in the first 10 years is the new piano, whatever model, if you want to make up a model number. That model number usually stays around for 5, 10,
sometimes decades.
Sometimes decades, and the value of your instrument kind of tags along because prices go up every year with new pianos. And so it kind of tags along, and there's not a lot of danger if you buy a new instrument and you're trying to sell it a couple years later. As long as you're buying a pretty trustworthy brand, there's not a huge hit on like a car where you drive it off the lot. It takes a huge depreciation hit right there off the bat. New pianos don't necessarily have that. And so let's switch gears. So that's new pianos. Let's switch gears to used pianos and the value proposition there.
Well, the idea just on a used piano compared to new, I'm looking at a 5-foot grand piano, maybe brand new. If I take that budget and I go used, I might be able to get me a nice, 6,
like
7,
an intermediate,
6.5 footer
and
intermediate piano that's still of a very intermediate to pro level.
It's probably going to be 20 to 30 years old.
Right, but it's got a lot of usable life in it. I mean, it's not going to be a frame on the stage with the Blue Man Group anytime soon because they hit those with hammers and mallets, okay? But there's a lot of life in older instruments. The downside to pianos that do get entirely worn out is there does come a point to where you can remanufacture the piano, and some of those are great used purchases because those are not considered new pianos even though they're remanufactured, and they do stretch your dollar, and you do get a bit of a warranty. You're not going to get like a 10-year with it, but you can get more instrument, so to speak.
Yeah, and I would say the most satisfied customers I've seen that have bought a used instrument have come in with an idea of what they're trying to get. So they have a model number, they have a series, they have a brand in mind, and they're not kind of just going in like, show me blindly this price point. The most satisfied customers will have an idea of what they want and kind of know the market price on it. Because like you said, if you have the budget of like a brand new, like the smallest entry line baby grand instrument from any of the manufacturers, if you have that budget and you look on the used market, you can find a pretty good deal of an older piano that might need a little bit of work, or need just a couple small things like, hey, you need a technician to go over, make sure everything's good.
Or it could be perfect.
It could be.
It could just be an older used instrument, or it could be a remanufactured one. Used doesn't necessarily mean it's like a 10-year-old used car.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the downside to it, is that most piano shoppers are available with automobiles. They cost about the same as like, man, 10 years old. It's like they're thinking that I just got rid of an 8-year-old car and it was a clunk. And that's not the same thing for pianos.
Yeah, and I think what scares a lot of people is they see the used market and they see 1950s spinets and they see 1960s, junky player pianos.
Right.
And really those are the end of a life cycle. So you're coming up on 60 plus years old. That's when an instrument really starts to turn into a clunker, and the value quickly becomes heavier.
It's what I say. It's when the natural raw materials that are used to manufacture a piano begin to show their age. It's not so much with the steel, okay, with the pins, but when that wood and those glues start getting a little creaky and they start getting like 60 to 70-year-old, they're just not as tight and as functional as they used to be.
And so I think that's a great segment to when you are looking at used instruments and you're in that, I would say, I hate to throw numbers out there, but $500 to $1,500 range. It's a very dangerous place to be in the used market.
You only get a certain kind of piano in that range.
And with the technology advancing to where it is in digital pianos, there's a great range of options for a usable instrument in that range that we would probably recommend over.
Absolutely. Someone came in here and they had 2 or 3 kids that are starting off, and they said, "Hey, I've got $800 to buy a piano with, or less, 1,000." Or
Yeah.
It's like, let's go look at the most affordable digital that you can get in that range,
And then
that'll
talk about upgrading at some point.
be better for the students.
And so that is a differentiator that we want to bring up. I think there is, and not to say that you can't get a good used piano for $1,500. There are some out there, but you do the risk reward at that point is it becomes increasingly more risky to buy the cheapest piano in the room and look for the most used instrument or a free one on Craigslist.
Right.
Or there's huge risks, and a lot of the times these instruments need a complete rebuild, which costs, with piano labor where it is, it's going to cost you at least $5,000 to $10,000 to get something rebuilt. You'll quickly realize it's not worth it, and you can get usable
Right.
instruments that are way more affordable than rebuilding an
Yeah,
instrument.
and the other thing too is, piano technicians, they can be your best aid, but at the same time, they're about as expensive as, say, an imported foreign sports car mechanic. You're not going to get a great piano technician to come over for $10 and fix your piano. But on a new piano for younger students, they're better off on an instrument that functions properly all the way,
Yeah.
even if it's not a real piano. It's a digital piano, so to speak. They're going to get much better ear training and hand-eye coordination and reading and all that stuff from an instrument that functions better.
And knowing the history on a used piano is very important. I think this is kind of where going to your local store, going with a trusted website or a trusted seller can be a huge benefit, because a lot of the times they've had technicians go over these instruments. They're willing to warranty them. They have sometimes a history of where the piano's come from, what's been done to it. And it's a much safer purchase to spend a little bit more, especially when you're thinking of how long you're wanting to hold on to this instrument. It kind of supplements the safety of buying a new piano. And so really, there's reasons to look at both, and I really believe it comes down to what is your overall goal. If it's there for a piece of furniture and you're just looking for what it looks like color-wise, and you're happy with all the keys
Aesthetic,
being
yeah.
there, that's another conversation. And yes, please go buy a used piano as long as it looks shiny. You'll be able to find a deal out there. But a lot of times these are directly going to correlate how you play, how you sound, how advanced your kids can get, how advanced you can get. And it's a really important decision, and one that I think a lot of people kind of just glide right over, and they don't spend a lot of times really kind of thinking 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 15, 20 years, where are you going to be? What's your overall goal? What's your journey? And do you want to have to buy multiple instruments? Would you rather grow with the one that you're going to keep around forever? And I think having an intention of what that is, that goal, I think really helps you kind of decide, should I be buying, something I can really grow with? A new piano really kind of is it's put your mind at ease. It's have a quality instrument that is going to last 100 years even, and then, or am I going to do a used? I don't know the history on it as much. I don't know if it needs a lot of work. I don't know how long it's going to be around. You can be safe in buying a better brand, having a technician go over it, try to buy it from a trusted source. There's ways to circumvent that, but you are going to be sacrificing on different things, and so that comes at a price, and you can sometimes win on that, or sometimes you can be like, okay, I don't know if this is the right one for me.
Right.
And so just important to differentiate those two things, new and used. Again, I think the ultimate value in a used one is knowing what you're looking for, having a technician go over it, and then sometimes in that 7-foot range, that 6.5-foot range, you save a heck of a lot of money by buying used on those ones, and you can get one that's been reconditioned, you can get one that's been serviced, and you can save $30,000 to $40,000.
Well, yeah, the idea is it's the savings that you save by getting more instrument. Okay, you spend the same as you would on a new one, but you're actually saving by getting something bigger and better.
Yeah, so there are great used instruments out there. The more you spend on used instrument, a lot of the times, the better the instrument is. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah, there is one other aspect that we skipped over. It's real important because music is all about sound. And a lot of times we've had those customers, they come in, they want nothing new and they want nothing digital. I'm looking for the right aged piano because it has to sound a certain way. They want their soundboards to be a certain, have some kind of patina or vintage sound to them. And those ancient Steinways we get in that are 100 years plus that have been remanufactured, they kind of have a different tone. And there's some people, that's what a piano sounds like to them. And that's what they want. So there is something about older used instruments having a sound that's different, seasoned soundboard and rims.
And again, I think that goes back to knowing what you're looking for.
Again,
and a lot of times you'll be able to find it on the used market a lot more than just guide me by price. I think that's a danger of the new versus used argument, is guide me by price. So that's our new versus used for our piano buyer's guide. We are going to be making some more videos, acoustic versus digital, uprights versus grands, hybrid technology, things like that. Make sure you're subscribed so you can see that content coming out. Look forward to bringing you guys some great videos. This is Ted, I'm Patrick. Thank you guys for watching.